Cars are safer and more reliable than ever before, but have you noticed something recently when it comes to new cars? That something is something that's missing from your new car, and it's a spare tyre. Why don't modern cars come with spare tyres? Now, you might be thinking, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my car that didn't come with a spare tyre, but I don't think that's the case, really. The vast majority of new cars are sold without a spare tyre included in the boot of your car. According to a 2023 survey by the RAC in the United Kingdom, less than 3% of new car models were sold with a spare tyre included in the price. But why is this? Well, there's a few reasons behind it. One of the biggest ones is, of course, money. Spare tyres do not come cheap. Anybody who's had a puncture or replaced their tyres will know how much they cost. They can easily run into the thousands for a full new set. So when it comes to supplying one of these spare tyres for a new car, that of course increases the cost of the overall manufacturing and selling process, and that would inevitably be passed on to the customer, who might not be too happy about having to pay more for a new car. Although most people, if it was explained to them, would of course think, well, that's fair enough, I might need it. But car dealerships, car sellers do not see it that way, unfortunately. Cars in general are very expensive these days, particularly new cars. A lot of people can't afford them, so a couple grand on top of the asking price can be a dissuasive factor when it comes to choosing your next vehicle. But there's more to it than that. And like a lot of things in modern motoring, it's also down to emissions. Depending on the size of the tyre that you have for your car, it could weigh anywhere up to 45 pounds or around 20 kilograms, which is a lot. Add that up over a long distance, it does actually increase your fuel consumption by a significant amount, which means it costs more to run your car. Therefore, it's not very good at the end of the day. So you want to limit that as much as possible. And when it comes to doing the emissions testing for a vehicle as well, for the sellers, the lower the actual emissions are, the better in a lot of countries. For example, here in the UK, we have something called road tax, and that is actually determined on your car's emissions. So if your cars emit less greenhouse gas, you could pay less with that. Again, it's another incentive for people to actually buy a car. And if it's higher, then it's an incentive not to buy it, to dissuade them from actually doing it. On top of that as well, there's the practicality of it as well. I mean, some tyres for a lot of cars nowadays, I mean, you can get like 20-inch tyres, can't you? There's some huge SUVs, some huge luxury cars. And a lot of people, even if they had the spare tyre in the back of the car and they had to use it, they're really, really awkward to use, particularly if you're not a trained mechanic. Actually getting the car up on the jack and removing the old wheel and putting the new one on, it's a really, really difficult process. And if you've never done it before, you've never been told how to do it, particularly with a very large wheel, it's something that's going to be very difficult to do, particularly if you've had to go through a rather traumatic incident of having a puncture on a high-speed motorway, which happened to me a long time ago. I was not in a position to actually change a tyre at that point. Honestly, it was horrible. So even if they did have it, a lot of people wouldn't use it, and that is also part of the thinking behind not including it in the first place. And like a lot of things on the emission side of things, electric cars. Electric cars don't really have the space for spare tyres. Now, typically, tyres, of course, if they're not placed on the actual back of the car, if they're like a 4x4 on the boot or whatever, they are included in the actual boot of the car usually. But that is where a lot of these batteries are sometimes stored, a lot of electrical devices for EVs. So they can't compromise on space in the boot, so therefore there's no room for them in EVs. They're not really ever included in EVs, unfortunately, for that very reason. So the EV skeptics out there, that is very much a plus point in your camp and one against EVs. That's why they never come with spare tyres, as far as I'm aware anyway. It just doesn't happen because there is no actual space for it, and they're not just going to put it on top of the boot or whatever, because that's where your luggage has to go, that's where your shopping has to go. But of course this isn't perfect. The dangers of it. There are many dangers. Of course, there are dangers with this. If you don't have a spare tyre, if you get a puncture and you're by the side of the road, if it's cold, if it's bad weather, if it's really, really hot, you don't want to be stuck out there for very long. It's not a good place to be. When I had my puncture a good few years ago, I was really lucky because there was a guy there who was driving in a van and saw what happened, and he was an actual breakdown cover person. He just changed my tyre for free. I had a spare in the back because my car was very old. I think it was about 15 years old at that point, something like that. So I actually had a spare tyre. So he very, very kindly was a good Samaritan and actually helped me out there. So fair play to the guy. But you're rarely that lucky. And if I didn't have a spare tyre, I wouldn't have had a chance. I wouldn't have had a chance. I mean, I would have had to wait hours and hours. And yeah, I'm in relatively good shape. I can wait by the side of the roads for a few hours, even though it was a very hot day. I think it was about 90 degrees Fahrenheit that day, which I know people in America and Australia will be like, oh, that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. That's not even springtime for us, but it's very hot for us here in the UK. But if I had a health condition, if I was elderly, if I was disabled, and I was in that position, it could have been quite awkward. If I had my son in the back, for example, he could have easily been with me. A young child would have struggled in that situation. So if you don't have a spare tyre and you're unable to change it because you don't have a spare tyre, then there's a lot of safety hazards with that as well. So for me, I think they should find a way around it. They should definitely try and include these more. And again, a lot of people just aren't aware of it. A lot of people won't even ask. And unfortunately, it's kind of well, if you're not going to go with us, you can go with them down the road for a new car, but they've got the same problem. They don't have a spare tyre either. So 3% or whatever of new cars coming with spare tyres in the UK is pretty bad. And I imagine it's a similar story in a lot of other parts of the world as well. But yeah, let us know what you think, guys. Is this the case for you in your new car? Would you want a new spare tyre basically with it? Is that a deal breaker for you? I want to hear what you have to say in the comments below. I know there'll be some people who have 4x4s and do a lot of off-roading where it's like you need a spare tyre. You need an extra fuel tank. You need those kind of provisions. Otherwise, I can't go where I want to go. But for a lot of people, just doing the daily commute, going to the school run, doing going to work, going to the shops or whatever, it's not really a deal breaker for them. But yeah, have a great day, guys. Hope you had a fantastic time this weekend. And yeah, we'll see you soon for some more content just like this on the channel, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you want to see more just like this.